Hey gang, and welcome back. This week we're going to look at my top 5 EDH partner pairings for Magic the Gathering. There's only going to be 5 entries on the list because each entry has 2 creatures. My criteria isn't necessarily how strong they're going to be, but rather how well they synergize together and how much I think people will enjoy playing them. Number 5. First up, we have Vial Smasher the Fierce and Thrasios Triton Hero. This wonderful pairing allows us to play every color except for white, which is not something to overlook. They also happen to be 2 very popular tribes, Goblin and Merfolk, respectively. But what makes the pairing for me very powerful is that each of these creatures does something that the other one wants. Thrasios is going to be able to help us hit our land drops and at the same time scry away things that we don't necessarily want, whereas Vial Smasher will punish opponents by blasting them all in the face whenever we cast our first spell. Thrasios covers us in the defensive sense, whereas Vial Smasher is more aggressive. By having green in our commander thanks to Thrasios, we're able to use a lot of ramp spells, which is what Vial Smasher really wants, to cast big spells and do big damage. Big mana is really where this deck wants to be. Whether you're dumping it into Thrasios to be able to scry, hit lands, or put dead cards on the bottom, or using that same mana to cast big creatures or big spells with Vial Smasher, it really all comes down to having access to that mana. I would actually consider running a lot of Eldrazi's in this deck, since having infinite color mana works really well with Thrasios, and then being able to cast one of those Eldrazi's with Vial Smasher is going to result in some huge damage. Number 4, Ishai, Ojutai Dragonspeaker, and Rayhan, Last of the Abzan. Another partnership that results in 4 colors being played, Rayhan and Ishai are centralized around one common theme, +1/+1 counters. Now I'm sure you're thinking this is probably pretty boring since +1/+1 counters probably means that you're going to be swinging with a lot of creatures, and that's partly true, but I think there's a lot of room for fun. All we have to do is look at some of the mechanics that involve +1/+1 counters, and I think you'll be able to see there's a lot of room for this deck to be able to be unique. There's Bolster, there's Graft, there's Outlast, Scavenge, and then there are a lot of cards like Spikeweaver or other things that want +1/+1 counters on them to be able to have powerful effects. But if you're really committed to the aggro plan, and I can't really blame you because sometimes getting into the red zone is always fun, Skullbriar the Walking Grave is probably a great card to have in your 99. Number 3, Sidar Kondo of Jamura, and Tana the Bloodsower. Naya. Naya has a lot of really great commanders and ways to be built. In this particular case, I think it's going to go with one of the more flavorful and enjoyable elements of EDH, and that's through the tokens route. The real centerpiece around this deck is going to be Tana and how she works in tandem with Sidar's ability. With Sidar's claws being so focused on 2 power or less, we're certainly not going to want to run a lot of anthems in the deck. Instead, I would focus on being able to make Tana hit for 2 multiple times, either through extra combat steps or things like Double Strike. Then, once you've amassed a critical amount of Saprolings, run something like Overrun or Craterhoof Behemoth and just smash through. It's also worth noting that Sidar Kondo of Jamura doesn't just affect our own creatures, so there's a political element to this. Number 2, Selias Wren, Seeker Adept, and Ravos, Soul Tender. Another traditional shard in the sense that this is Esper colors, Selias and Ravos function heavily with the graveyard. Although not as interesting as some of the other pairings on this list so far, Ravos and Silas are very powerful in the sense that they're able to generate constant recursion through our graveyard. Blue as a color tends to focus on filtering cards by drawing and discarding, which might as well read draw 2 cards for this deck. Whether it's a creature, an artifact, or an artifact creature, chances are we'll be able to get it back to our hand very easily. This deck could be easily built as a control shell, with only a few win conditions which are able to recur quite easily thanks to our commanders, or you could probably build it around a reanimator theme, which, just in case we run out of gas, are able to return some of our big creatures and then hardcast them from our hand. Either way, I think it's safe to say that whatever dies in a Silas and Ravos deck doesn't stay dead for long. And finally, my number 1 top pairing is Cadell, Chosen of Krufix, and Timna the Weaver. Cheap in comparison to cards like Ravos Soul Tender and Sidar Kondo, Cadell and Timna may be able to come down earlier than most commanders, but their true strength lies in the fact that they both embody one of the 2 strongest attributes in EDH, drawing cards and ramping hard. But these 2 ladies take it one step further. Timna is able to fuel Cadell by allowing her to tap for more mana, and that mana can in turn cast the cards that Timna has drawn after your first combat step. With access to things like tutors, ramp, counterspells, bounce spells, board wipes, and a veritable multiverse of card drawing options, Cadell and Timna are probably the strongest pairing to come out of Commander 2016. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of the partner mechanic, but I think these two are going to make a real impact on the meta. Anyway gang, those are my top 5 pairings for EDH partner commanders from Commander 2016. Have you guys had a chance to test any of these new pairings out? Have you guys had a chance to find your favorites? Please let me know in the comments below, and please be sure to let me know what your top 5 list of partners looks like. Maybe your list has a Kiri on it, or maybe it has Ludwig, Necroalchemist for whatever reason. Also, please be sure to check back every Monday as a new video goes live at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time. And as always, thanks for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.